The Wests Tigers Podcast, proudly supported by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Have your say on everything Wests Tigers by joining up for free today. Follow the link at westtigerspodcast.com.au.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Night Live. Well, we're back for Sunday Night Live because it was Monday Night Live last week. But here we go again. What will be West Tigers podcast episode number 210, which is a pretty amazing number. It's really climbing up. Of course, not the happiest of times for us West Tigers fans. A 24-22 loss to the Dragons today at CommBank Stadium. Gary Watson, one word, please, to describe that performance, or any other one words that you'd like to describe for our current situation.
I'm going to steal from Steve, and I'm going to use more than one word. And I'm just going to say dumb, dumb, dumb. And I think that's fairly self-explanatory.
Well, certainly the last 5 minutes was apt. Yes. What about you, Declan? How are you doing? What's your one word for that performance?
I'm also going to channel my inner Steve and use more than one word. Attention to detail. I think that if you just look at even the first try St George scored, where we didn't get our numbers right in the blind side, to all the way to the Junior Pauga touching the ball inside the 10 metres, there was just absolutely no attention to detail. And it's really tough because I really don't want to be negative, because I thought that the team came with a really good bounce back in terms of energy and intensity and effort, but that attention to detail was just awful.
Yeah, well, our group chat that the five of us are in, it's been a little bit on the quiet side post-game. We haven't discussed what our one word would be, but I'm going to channel my Steve as well and not be too far off where you guys are at. I've gone careless. I thought careless was the right word, and that does centre around that attention to detail that Steve's always talking about. So that's interesting. We're not too dissimilar with our one word, and there are plenty of people leaving their one word on the West Tigers podcast forum on that thread that's always there. It's the Sunday Night Live round 24 live thread, so make sure you leave any comments or questions there, and we'll get to those a little bit later on in the evening. Really strong listener numbers already this tonight, so that's really pleasing. Thank you. All right, let's have a bit of a look. Another word, Gary, that I was going to pull out was deserving, i.e., when you look at the stats, when you look at the amount of errors that the West Tigers made today, we made 16 errors, which equates to one every 5 minutes. No matter who you're playing, you're pretty much shooting yourself in your foot and not giving yourself much of an opportunity to win if you turn the ball over that frequently.
I think especially in that second half, like that late period, that last 20 minutes of the game, when we were coming out of our own area and we kept on coming up with a poor drop ball, a number of times a poor drop ball, and I really think that cost us today. We kept on inviting St George back into our end of the field, and even when we skipped away again after they evened up at 16 all and we skipped away again, we followed that up with a couple more really poor errors in our own half, and it's really those errors in our own half that cost us today. Though at times there was errors when we were attacking on the try line. I think there was a couple of times we dropped the ball early in tackle account. Those sort of errors today, and that's where Declan's attention to detail really comes into it. Those errors today are the reason we lost. I thought we went in there with enough intensity and enough effort to beat that St George side that wasn't playing real well either, and it was those silly, dumb errors, that lack of attention, that really cost us in the end.
Declan, one thing I remember about Brett Kimmorley as a player, and it was something that stands out to me, was that he really liked to play a flat attacking structure, not a lot of depth in his play as a player. And I thought that was what we were doing today. We didn't have much depth in our attack, and I wonder if that contributed to the errors, i.e., I don't think it worked, and the Dragons with their okay line speed put a lot of pressure on us, and that may have led to some of those errors.
I think Yeah, I think you're right. It wasn't like there was a lot of depth to attack, but I don't think it was necessarily a game plan thing in that sense. I think it was more a concentration factor with the errors we made, spreading the ball or just from the play of the ball. I don't know. It like the attack. It did seem to work. So we did seem like whenever we got good ball, we did look threatening with them. So I'm not really sure that like the flatness of the attack was the reason why we made so many errors. I think it was probably more to do with concentration.
Yeah, I think a lot of those errors were unforced errors today. Things like picking the ball up from dummy half and not picking it up cleanly, they were the real costly ones. I actually thought our attack started to look a little bit better today. And we were only playing St. George, but I think there's been, since Jackson Hastings' injury, he's been the guy that kind of creates our structure and our shape and that depth to our attack. And that has been missing since he's been out injured. But I did see today that movement of Brown to playing that ball-playing lock sort of role. I thought that brought some of our attack back a little bit. And yes, it was only against the Dragons, but I thought that improved. But I still thought we were very clunky. As we've seen over the past couple of weeks, our attack has been a bit stop-start. Guys overrunning, running the ball player, and that sort of stuff was happening a bit again today. And some of that might have been due to playing a little bit flatter than we traditionally do as well. But I did think that flat attack and that pressure from St. George, it led to a couple of our tries as well. The try Madden set up for, I think it was Freebarn's try, where Hunt rushed up on him and he was able to step in before he even caught the ball and then play short. That was because of their rushing defence. And we did at times play some nice plays to actually overcome that. We just made too many errors.
Just one thing, just speaking of New Brown, and I've got it on my list of things to talk about. Does anybody know why he was in jersey 23 instead of 13? Gary?
Yeah, he was in 13 to start the game.
Oh, okay.
But the one came off on the back of his jumper, so they swapped the jumper around at some point.
Right, okay. I had one of those, I thought we were playing later in the day. I was at the shopping centre. I thought, hang on, wait a minute, they play at 2 o'clock. So I've quickly dashed home, watched it sort of on KO, skipping through. And then the second half, I watched everything but the last 10 minutes because I had to pick up my daughter from work. So I left with 10 to go. And I started getting the messages coming in. And I thought, oh no. But I have gone back and watched the last 10 minutes and I would prefer not to have, but I did. Gary?
It was quite funny. Steve actually turned to Declan at one point today and said, who is that playing in number 23?
Yeah.
So even people who saw the whole game kind of missed that jersey change. So, you weren't the only one, Joel.
Thought he was channeling his Michael Jordan maybe. The talking point from the first half, aside from the mistake-a-thon from both teams, was that the Dragons had 2 players sin-binned. And during that time, I think from memory, we scored 1 try in each of the 10-minute periods. And I think coming back to what we were talking about on Wednesday night, Gary, like the Dragons always had that little bit more class than us. And I just think we didn't capitalise enough in that first half. Yes, we had a 10-point lead at half-time, but maybe another try or two. Obviously, the final scoreline's proven that, but I don't know if we capitalised on that enough. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, it would have been nice to get probably another try in that 20-minute period where we were playing against. That's a quarter of the game.
Mm.
But when we look back over the last couple of times where we've played against sides that are short, they've usually managed to score a couple of tries against us. So I turned to the people sitting around me and I said, how many tries are we going to let in the next 10 minutes when that first binning happened? So at least we got a positive. But yeah, we didn't take quite enough advantage of that, and that contributed to St. George kind of running us down in the end. But you know what? We still should have won that game. It was those errors coming out of our own end. It was the dumb play of Junior Porga to touch that ball. I am going to raise it. I have to say it. I can't help but not say it. Where he was standing, he was out of position anyway. Like if a short dropout doesn't go the 10 metres, you're not standing on that 8 metre line like he was. You need to stay behind the 10 metres because if the ball bounces towards it, he's out of position anyway. If the ball had have not hit him on the foot, but had landed and bounced over the 10-metre line, he would have been behind the ball. Like, it is just a schoolboy error. Like, I would have been cranky at under 12 sides I've coached in the past if they did what he did today. And it really cost us the game. If that ball doesn't go 10 metres and we don't touch it, we get a penalty in front and it puts us up by 8. We win the game from there. It was a crucial mistake, and I think there's a high chance he may have played his last game for the club, because you can't make that error.
I don't think he was on contract for next year anyway. I don't think so. Yeah, and he's defensively, when he has played in the centres, he's missed quite a number of tackles. So, Declan, the fundamentals of the game. We are going to finish with the wooden spoon, and sometimes that's deserved, and sometimes it's not so deserved. I think one of the reasons why it's deserved for us is how we struggle with the fundamentals of the game, and realistically, what I'm talking about is the ability to build pressure. I think we forced one Dragons dropout today, but that's been something that's been the theme of the whole year, is that inability to be able to build pressure. And that's, if you look at so many of the tries that we've conceded, there's been a Tigers error just before it. Like, we're just doing all the fundamentals wrong, or we're just not doing it well enough to give ourselves a chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we probably do deserve the wooden spoon at this point. I think at kind of the midway point, at the back end of the season, I thought that we probably didn't deserve it. I thought we were kind of unlucky, but I think how we played the last few weeks, I think we probably do deserve it. And I think you're right. Just like whenever we did, like the fact that Adam Dury, managed to force that goal line dropout, that should have been it. We should have won it from there. I think most teams in NRL probably could have won it from there, but the fact that we didn't shows just how far behind we are in terms of where we need to be if we want to be a competitive team. And you're right, we just haven't been able to do it all season. In fact, I don't think we've even been able to get close to even getting a goal line dropout, because we haven't even managed to get inside the opposition in red zone in the last few weeks anyway. So I think that's definitely one part of it, but I think there's multiple facets to why we deserve the wooden spoon.
It's quite interesting in that game today. I think it really highlighted that inability to build pressure. Our forwards were fairly rolling through that St. George pack fairly easily. Like, they really were soft through the middle of St. George, and we'll get down to their end of the field, but the set wouldn't go anywhere, and we wouldn't be able to get a repeat set to save ourselves. But for how many times today, think back over the game, how many times today St. George were on our line and they just got set after set after set. And some of them were us giving away infringements and giving away 6 agains. But any time they were down our end of the field, they seemed to be camped down there for a long time. And we just didn't do that down their end of the field when we got down there. And you can't keep giving sides opportunities like that. Not only do we not build repeat sets, our attack's not good enough to score in one. And quite often it's not good enough to score on 3 or 4 repeat sets in a row. So we've really got to build that pressure and keep that pressure on. And we either make a silly mistake or we have a poor end to a set that gives the ball back too easily, and it releases all the pressure from the other team. And it's been happening all year. And I think today was a perfect example of that happening, because I don't think there was a big difference between the two sides today, but St. George did a better job of building pressure compared to us.
It is depressing. It's frustrating. It's hard to take. But Declan, we do forget that we do have quite a bit of cattle sitting on the sidelines. Should that be factored in? Is it as bleak as it seems? I mean, if you put Steph and a fit and firing Brooks in the team and a few others, I mean, you're not going to agree on Brooks, but you know what I mean. We're missing some experienced first graders.
I'm a firm believer in the old tenet that it's never as bad as it seems. It seems very bad right now, but I think you're right. Even if we did beat the Dragons and, somehow avoided the wooden spoon, would it really make that much of a difference in terms of the rebuild that we see ourselves in? And yeah, we do have a lot of injuries, but I think that at the end of the day, injuries can only take you so far in terms of an excuse. And yeah, I just don't really like it when people throw up, because there are a lot of injuries, but we definitely still should have won that game.
And I think that's why ultimately we end up with the wooden spoon. I don't think it's really because of the injuries we had. I think we could have had the injuries we have had this year and avoided the spoon. But the problem was we had key games that were there to be won, and in key moments, time and time again this season, we failed to win those big moments. You have a look at the Titans game earlier in the year. You have a look at the game against the Warriors. They were all winnable games, and we didn't take advantage of those games. I think we played better football than a couple of other sides at times this year, and for large parts of the season. I think we're better than the Titans for most of the season. But the difference is we didn't take our chances to win games that we should have won, and I think that's why we end up with the wooden spoon. Not because of the injuries. The injuries don't help, but I think we still could have avoided that fate if we just had taken the chances in a lot of games that we just failed to win that we should have done. Like the Warriors beat us twice in games that we should have won. Titans beat us. They're all, and today is a game that we should have won. We got to a position to win that game. We got to a position with 7 minutes to go to get 8 points in front, and we failed to in that one moment. And that moment was the difference between winning or losing.
It's West Tigers Radio. On a lighter note, and I don't mean to be ageist, but do we have a duty of care? Should we be putting a 71-year-old in charge of this team? Because I'm not half, but closer to half of that, and it's killing me. I mean, how's Sheen's going to go with this? Any thoughts?
Look, he's a genuine concern. This team isn't good for anyone's health. I think Declan probably struggles with his health, and he's half the age of me. So, look, in all seriousness, I think he's the best option moving forward at this point in time. But man, he's going to be that ticker's going to be under some stress next season.
I suppose one thing to be said about having an experienced coach is they probably handle pressure better than an inexperienced coach. And I think next year, it's going to be pretty rough. So on one hand, I think that, oh God, why did we do this? Why did we give Tim Sheens the job? But on the other hand, I think it's probably good to have someone who's kind of been there and done that before, because I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs next season. And I think experience is crucial when dealing with that.
The hard thing is the pressure will probably be fine. It's just dealing with the dumb stuff this team does. Like it's enough to drive the sanest person insane. So it's a tough job.
Well, I think that's the hope that, round one will be a completely different looking team, especially in the forward pack. Hopefully, we have a healthy spine. Jackson Hastings, Luke Brooks, if he's still here next season, he's there. But yeah, I think the outside backs though, it's looking a bit concerning, because you would imagine that a few of those guys from today are probably going to be in that round one team next year.
Look, staying on that same vein, and we'll come back to the Dragons game. I want to talk a little bit more about it, but there is that rumour around that Jayden Su'a could be a target for us to play in the second row. He made 222 metres today for the Dragons. Are we fans? Gary was good at the Broncos, not so, he was okay at South. Hasn't been too happy by the look of it at the Dragons.
I spoke the other night about Tim Sheens picking up some guys who have had past form at a decent level and who have kind of dropped that form over the past couple of years. I think this sounds like a very Tim Sheens type signing to me. It harks back to those guys that he picked up in 2004 that in his words were on the scrap heap, and he picked them up and they really played a big role in 2005. So this one wouldn't surprise me. And yeah, he pushed through some metres today, and I thought he played quite well today. So I wouldn't mind it. I think we need that one more experienced second rower. And while those younger guys were coming through, gives them a bit more time. So it wouldn't surprise me, and I'd probably be supportive of it. But it all once again comes back to how much you're paying and what percentage of the salary cap it's taking up.
Last time, he was only off contract last year, and I remember talking to the club, and they did make some inquiries about him, but they said he wanted way too much money for them to, go any further with it. So it would be interesting to see what's changed in 12 months since he was last off contract. Because I think it's the same as Gary. I think that for me, he's a good player, but it really depends on how much he wants. If he wants anywhere north of 600k, I think that's too much for someone like them. He's very reliant. He's 24 years old, so he does have a lot of upside. He's good in defense, but I don't think he's one of those elite guys that, can demand elite money for the back row.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think we necessarily need an elite guy in that position. I think getting a guy for a couple of years, like we've got 4 or 5 young second rowers coming through the junior grades, and someone who can hold a spot in the second row for the next couple of years, that might be all we need until one of these guys can turn into a genuine first grader, and maybe even a bit more than that. So at the right price, I think it's a signing that could help the club through the next couple of years.
Normally at this time we talk halves, but I'm steering the conversation away from that because it's not too much. I think we're all sick to death of talking about the halves. But I
think that's why Steve isn't on tonight.
Yeah.
He's just sick of talking about Luke Brooks and Adam Dewey, so he stayed away.
So instead, let's spend a minute or two talking about Zane Musgrove, right? So what a lovely ball that was for Jock Madden. Wasn't that fantastic? But the rest of the game, 10 runs, 81 metres, and to put that into perspective, Tom Freebarn, who's by no means a giant out there on the field, 10 runs for 82 metres. He made an extra metre. Declan, we can't be a successful team if Zane Musgrove is your starting impact prop, surely.
Yeah, 100%. He's just like for how old he is and how many first grade games he's played, I think he's just well below par in terms of consistency. Because he missed that tackle on Jack Bard that led to a try, which is like, oh my god, that was awful. But then he threw that lovely offload for Jock Madden to score as well. So you've just got that inconsistency in the game. And I think, to be fair, I don't think I'm speaking too far out of line when I say that there's probably more bad than good when it comes to Zane Musgrove. And I think that he's probably the perfect guy that kind of floats between reserve grade and first grade in terms so he can cover for injuries or come off the bench. But yeah, I think you're really struggling when you're making him the start in front rower because he's just not consistent enough. Nowhere near it, to be honest.
The really frustrating thing with him is there's those little... Today was a perfect example of it. There's those little highlights of a really good thing he does. Like that play was a great play, but we need him doing that 2 or 3 times a game, not once every 4 or 5 weeks, which is what we get. And he mixes around that a whole heap of really poor mistakes, like bad missed tackles. That tackle today on a front rower should never miss that tackle. It was really poor. It was an arm grabbing attempt. And he was just pushed away by a decent size back. But he needs to do better than that. And what I find frustrating is he can do that beautiful offload to Madden. That led to the Madden try. But as soon as... And I say it all the time, we should never mention him when he does something good, because as soon as you think, oh, great, he's turning a corner, he turns around and he drops the ball or he gets beat with his poor lateral movement and a front rower runs straight past him and runs 50 metres to score. They're the problems, and it's not good enough for us, and we need better. We need an impactful forward. We need what he potentially could have been if he eliminated all the rubbish from his game, and I think we've got to look elsewhere to get it, because that's what's really the key point that's missing in our forward pack, even next year, is a guy who plays the way that Musgrove should be playing.
I think it's something to be said about the fact that Fanua Paul's come on and probably played better than him more consistently, and he's only a 20-year-old. So when you've got a 20-year-old coming in and giving you 10 runs for 102 metres, only 1 missed tackle, as opposed to Musgrove, who, as Joe said, only ran for something about 81 metres from 10 runs and missed 3 tackles. That's pretty significant that a rookie is more consistent than you at this point. I think it completely highlights the problem that you can't have him starting in the front row because he's just not consistent enough.
And if you compare and contrast us with the more successful teams, I mean, for Cronulla, for example, they've got a couple of them. It's something that's so glaringly, obviously missing in our team, and I don't see us having a logical person there that's going to take that. It's just not quite Stefano's game. You need a junior Paulo or someone of that build. I think that wrecking ball to get us some ascendancy. with the ball. So I hope the club is listening to that. I hope the club is, trying to find someone that might be able to fill that role, because it's really, really desperately needed, Gary.
Yep, I think that's the key missing ingredient to our forward pack. I think with the guys coming back next year, our forward pack looks a lot stronger, but it still lacks that impact forward, that middle guy that can disrupt the defensive line by hitting the line hard, knocking a few guys out of the ground, hitting the ground and getting up and getting a quick play of the ball. We don't have it, and that's what all the good teams play off the back of. They get that guy. Yeah. He does the hit up. He knocks a couple of guys out of the way. He's up and played the ball quick, and they've got a retreating defense that's already disrupted from the impact of the forward. And that's how those really good teams play through the middle. That's how they have their fullbacks running through the middle. Tedesco's great at it, and we just don't have that forward to really allow us to play that style, that style of football that the really strong teams are playing. And we spoke about earlier in the year about us having to rely on block plays, and it's why we score most of our tries out on the wing or out in the centres. It's because we don't have that impactful forward through the middle, and it's been an issue all year. It's been an issue for the past couple of years, and I think it's something we need to rectify as soon as possible.
Our kick defusal was only 42%, which is pretty bad. Like, I know Dane Laurie missed a couple, but there's plenty of people that say, and we go on and on about it, that we're not going to be able to, but we're not going to be a successful team with Dane Laurie at fullback, and it's not a slight on him. I think most people are fans of him. He's a courageous player, but maybe Declan not big enough, not tall enough, there's something missing there. Do you think?
So I've been kind of back and forth in my own mind about this for pretty much the whole season. I think that for me, I just want a fullback these days that's just a little bit bigger. So the high balls, they don't really concern me, to be honest, because I think that's, as we kind of talk about it, it's more of a technique thing and a training thing that can get better the more you practice it. But I think the thing with Laurie that you can't really fix is his size. I think the carry, when he comes back, his carries aren't what we need them to be because he is quite small. And even when he runs the ball, once someone gets a hold of him, he's not really that likely to break the tackle. But when you look at the premier fullbacks of the game, guys like James Tedesco, even someone like Dylan Edwards, they're big dudes, they're hard to tackle, especially when they're in space. So that's why I think that someone like Dane Laurie, I don't want to say it, but I'm a little bit worried about his ceiling as a NRL starting fullback. And I'm also a bit worried that if we do sign someone like Charlie Staines, that he'll run into a similar problem here.
And I think it was really evident today that lack of size and what it does to his return game. Because usually he has Kimmorley on the wing who can cover for that a little bit, and Naden does a decent job. But he had Junior Porger out there today who really is no bigger and doesn't have that return game. And I thought that really slowed us up a little bit at the start of our sets. I don't think we're getting good ground off the start of our sets due to that lack of size at fullback and on that wing. But I will say, as soon as we get a game where our forwards get forward and get through the middle a little bit better, his game does lift. And I thought his attacking game today was fairly decent. He had a couple of times where he just about cracked St. George open. But we don't win that forward battle enough either to allow him to do that. So I think that holds him back a little bit. I think he would look a much better player behind a forward pack that was playing through the middle and winning that middle of the field a lot more. And I just like a halfback, I find it really hard to judge him on that, because any game where we start to get a little bit of go forward, I think he really comes into his own and he's quite dangerous with the ball in his hand, and his running game becomes quite dangerous there. So it's a really hard one, but I definitely do agree. It would be nice if he was a little bit bigger and had a little bit more impact bringing the ball back from our own end of the field.
Yeah, I think Gary's right in the sense that we do kind of need to lay the platform for him to showcase his skill set. But the thing is, I think the good teams, they have players that can make something out of nothing. So, like, you look at someone like the Trill at South Sydney, his size and his speed and his, strength, that can create things for them when they're not necessarily going that crash hole themselves, and that's why he's so valuable. And then you look at someone like James Tedesco, similar thing as well. Tom Trbojevic, all these elite fullbacks, they can kind of create something out of nothing and get their team out of the hole they find themselves in. But I'm not sure that Dane Laurie has that in him, which is why I'm a little bit non-committed at the moment to him or someone with his size at fullback.
Look, you're 100% right, and I actually think that's probably the problem across our team, though, is we don't have those players who through a little bit of individual brilliance can consistently bust the game open. We don't have it in the centres. Adam Doueihi does it at times through his running game, but outside of that, even in our forwards, there's not one of our guys apart from Stefano who you think could hit the ball up and bust through a couple of tackles and run 20 metres. Like, we just don't have that in our forward pack, and all of our backs are very similar. Like, when any of our guys has a ball one-on-one, you're never thinking he's going to beat his man or he's going to bump his man off and go through. I think that's across the park with our side, and it really is concerning. We don't have that damaging player, that dangerous player, really anywhere on the field outside of Adam Doueihi, and he doesn't do it consistently enough at this point in time.
Declan, are we and maybe this player and the rest of the rugby league world sort of missing something here? Because to me, the way that Adam Doueihi plays, he's a runner, he's got a decent pass on him when he does pass. I know he has played at fullback, he's got the size, he's got the shape. I mean, wouldn't you want to be playing at fullback if you're Adam Doueihi? I would think. I mean, because, if he's painted himself into a corner with 5'8", but I see him as potentially being a really, really good fullback.
This takes me back to the year 2020. Like, I think that, he's a really good fullback with ball in hand. I think the problem that he would still have that we had last time he was playing fullback is he just doesn't cover the field in defence well enough. He is quite slow, and we did concede a few tries in 2020 that could have been diffused if he was not a little bit quicker. So I suppose that's something that if he could work on, then he would make a very good fullback. But for now, I think he's probably too slow out the backfield to play that position at NRL level.
Yeah, for me, it's really that lack of speed that kind of cost him. Though he did run down a winger today and bundle him into touch, which was... What I do have to say about that play was all heart.
Yeah.
Like, I think both players were running on empty by the time they got there, and it was just all heart from Adam Doueihi, and that's what he really brings to this club. I think him having the captaincy today made a huge difference, and I think we saw a very different player to what we saw last week. But that role at fullback, I think he just kind of struggles with that lack of... I think he'd be almost the prototype fullback. He's good under the high ball, but he just doesn't have that speed that you kind of need in that position. And to cover the ground positionally, and then in attack, it's quite not there speed-wise either. So if he was that little bit quicker, I think if he was that little bit quicker, he would never have been moved from fullback and he would have been still playing there.
Yeah, I think Adam Doueihi, I think he probably deserves a bit of credit because, last week, obviously, it was a bit of a disaster. And a lot of people, no one on this, panel, no one on this panel accused him of this, but a lot of people said he wasn't trying and, he, chucked the dummy in the court and, was kind of having a hissy fit because of his contract situation. But I think he really came out today and put in a lot of effort and a lot of class. And I think it was a real bounce back performance that he's probably not going to get the credit for because we did lose and he did come up with a costly error, but I think that it was a really good bounce back game from him.
Yeah, it was really a shame he knocked on from dummy half with that play because I think he would have got a lot more credit out of that game if it wasn't for that just one little mistake and people are going to pick up on that. I thought he was really good today. I thought he was really strong. I thought his ball playing was the highlight of his game today. I thought it was much better. I thought he was playing early. He was giving good ball to his outside men. That's kind of the way I want him to play. And if he eliminates that one little knock on today, I think it would have been a really top class game, and it probably would have been a game without that error where he won us the game today. Like that chase he did. I can't remember the St. George winger's name, but that chase he did down that sideline was a huge effort.
Yeah,
I think it was Moga.
Moga, yeah.
Slowest wagger in the competition.
Yeah, Adam Dewey still ran him down. I didn't think Adam Dewey was a chance as they ran past us sitting on about the 40-metre line. I thought he had him, but it was a good effort. And you could see how slow they both were because Naden turned around and chased and just about caught the both of them by the try line as well.
Yeah. Another player that deserves a pat on the back, maybe not necessarily for effectiveness per se, but Joe Offa-Hengawi, once again, 15 runs, a busy game, only 128 metres, but that is kind of Joe. Joe's never going to be your big metre-eating prop. It's West Tigers Radio and the West Tigers podcast. Really good listener numbers tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll have a look at those comments and questions on the West Tigers podcast forum shortly. Gary, the other night on the midweek pod, we were talking about, and it is symptomatic of where we're at in terms of the amount of injuries. But we had Little, we had Simpkin, and we had New Brown all on the field. We spoke a little bit about being excited about New Brown, watching him at lock. I thought he went pretty well. But what did you make of the hookers? I thought Jake Simpkin, he made 37 tackles. I thought he was pretty good today.
Yeah, and he looked dangerous, especially early in the game. I thought he was getting out of dummy half a little bit and engaging the defenders. So I thought he had a good return. Again, there was just little moments in both their games where I thought they let themselves down a little bit. A missed tackle here. Little made a mistake. I can't remember, but exactly what it was. But I remember an error coming from him that was quite crucial as well. So it's just those. Again, it's very similar across the whole squad, and especially today. I thought there was a lot of guys who had good games to go. Even Joffa at one point put down an easy ball to knock on today, and those sort of errors, pretty much across the field, pretty much from all 17 players. That's really what cost us today, is that we just weren't consistent enough for long enough throughout that game.
Declan, we're anticipating the usual West Tigers post, and every club will be doing it this week, which will be West Tigers to farewell players X, Y, and Z. If you're keeping a backup hooker for next year, I know it's hard with different contracts and things like that, but would you be keeping Simpkin over Little?
Yes, I would be. I think Jacob Leto, I think he's probably grown as far as he can at this club. I think he probably needs a fresh start himself. I think the Dragons are the club that's been linked to him, and I got the sense that he was trying to, show off in front of the team he was trying to enter contract with a little bit with some of those passes. But yeah, I would definitely be keeping Jake Simpkin, and then I would definitely be trying to keep New Brown as well, because I think that his utility value is probably a little bit more at this point than Jake Simpkins as well, and he'd probably be on a little bit less money as well. So those are my two backup hookers going into next year. And then we've got Rua as well to come back from that ankle injury. So that would be my kind of depth from the hooker from that point of view.
I think we definitely need to move at least one of them on. I'll be keeping Simpkin as well. So I would be looking to move Little on, because I agree. I think we need to keep New Brown. I think New Brown showed today, if we're going into next year playing that 3 halves role, having Hastings as a lock, then we need someone who can back up that role. And we tried Freebarnes, kind of did it a little bit. We tried Pole there. We've tried Offa-Hengawi there. And I don't think any of them can play that role that Hastings plays in the middle of the field well enough, except for New Brown. I thought he did a pretty good job of it today. There was times it didn't work as well as we'd like to see it. But I think it has potential with him training in that role as a backup over the off-season. And it gives us that if Hastings is out, then maybe we don't have to change the complete structure of the side, because that's the issue with what we're looking at playing those 3 halves. Once Hastings is out, everything we do over the off-season, it's going to be null and void, because it changes the structure of the side that much. So I'd definitely be looking at getting Little to move on and putting New Brown in his spot, because I think he's crucial, not just as a backup hooker, but as a backup 13.
Further to that, you could probably say that you've got to make a choice between Tyrone Peachey and New Brown in terms of that utility player. And given the performances this year, you'd definitely go New Brown, which is pretty amazing to think given how experienced and what a talented player Tyrone Peachey has been. Gary?
Yeah, and not only that, it'd have to save you a heap in the salary cap as well. Because I moving even into next season with New Brown signing a new contract, I don't think it would be on a large contract. So, hopefully someone out there wants Peachy. I don't know who, but hopefully he can find a spot to kind of move on to, because, after today, I think he's gone further down the pecking order once again. I don't think he's a backup. I think he's probably 4th or 5th backup for that lock spot at the moment. And New Brown probably would be my number one backup if we can find a way to fit him into the squad for next season.
Well, we're getting close to sort of wrapping up the year. We've got one more Sunday Night Live next week, and then we'll do a Sunday Night Live around grand final time. We'll have a couple of weeks off because obviously the Tigers won't be playing, which is business as usual, unfortunately. But you'd have to say, and I don't want to get bogged down and talk about Tyrone Peachey, but he's one of the worst signings West Tigers have ever made, wouldn't you think, Declan?
Oh, I don't know. There'd be a few more that come to mind before I'd
It's a long list.
Yeah.
It's a very long list. I think that, obviously he hasn't really given much impact, but when you take into account how much money we're paying, I think other people will come to mind before him, to be honest.
What about the performance of Brett Kimmorley? We'll obviously be discussing that and wrapping that up. But we've picked a guy on the bench for his debut again and given him 4 minutes. Declan, your hands up.
Yeah, not even just 4 minutes, just 4 of the most intense, pressure gouging minutes of the game. And it's just, I cannot believe someone would throw in a rookie second rower who hasn't played, first grade ever into those 4 minutes, the most high pressure 4 minutes of a game this season that anyone could have, experienced on their debut. It was just mind blowing. How do we expect to debut these rookies, but when we treat them like that, you know what I mean? He's probably gutted, and it's not his fault. The coach put him in a situation to fail. And how has that been a development club? And you look at Matamua as well. When we played Penrith, yes, he made some mistakes, and that might have cost us the game. But then they dump him to reserve grade, never to be seen again as well. So that is not the way you raise these rookies. I wouldn't be surprised if their confidence was shot after this. It was just really bad coaching all around from Brett Kimmorley. And he is someone that, last week distanced himself from the performances. And to be fair, there is a little bit of merit to that probably, but he can't distance himself from that because that was clearly on him.
And the hard thing is, we've got Tamo, who's coming back for possibly his last NRL game next week. Who do you think is going to drop off our bench next week? And so we've sent him out there for 3.5 minutes of the game. He's made an error, and what turned out to be quite a costly error. And that may be his only taste of NRL football this season. And he may have that. Now, depending on the makeup of the guy, it could be something that burns at him and drives him over the off-season, or it could be something that he dwells on over the off-season, and it makes it really difficult for him to get back to this part of his career. So I really hope he gets another run next week and we can put him out there and he can show a little bit what he can do, because that mistake he made, it was a terrible ball that he got. He got a ball in traffic that was a hospital pass, and he put it down, and yes, he should have caught it, but now that's his NRL debut. That's the 3 minutes of his NRL debut. That's what he has to remember it by. And not only that, in all likelihood, we're not playing him next week. And so he has that to sit in his mind for the entire off-season. And I wanted better for him today. I really wanted to see him get a little bit of game time. Not a lot, but 20 minutes or so he can get out there. If he makes an early error, like a lot of young guys do, he gets a chance to make up for it. And that's the biggest problem. He may not get a chance to make up for it till midway through next season.
So what doesn't make sense to me, goodness me, why do we do this to ourselves? It's coming to the end of the year, so my patience is running out. But, we've known since Maguire was sacked that we're not going to make the final. So what difference does it make from that point, right? So we're a development club. We've blooded 7 guys this year, but they've had, aside from Fanua Pole and Diaz, who have had a little bit of game time, basically most of the other debutants have had a couple of minutes here and a couple of minutes there. Why wouldn't you have used this time to really give them a good go and get some miles on the clock in first grade, Gary?
Look, I do understand that. Like, you don't want to be putting them all out on the field all at the same time, putting them in a position where they're coming into grade playing with a whole heap of other young guys without a lot of experience. You don't want to do that. And I don't mind a guy getting a couple of weeks. The Matamua one, I'm not that concerned with, as long as it was communicated to him effectively. Like, if you put a guy up for a couple of weeks into first grade and then you drop him back down with key ideas of what he needs to work on in the lower grades and what you want to see him developing in the lower grades, that can be a great way of developing young guys. And I actually expected when Pole came in, I thought that's what we'd see for him, but his form was just too good to put him back down. So I don't mind a young guy going up and playing a little bit of first grade, and even in the last couple of weeks getting a taste of first grade before the off-season. What I don't like is a guy getting 3 minutes and making a mistake in that 3 minutes and maybe being close to 12 months away from getting a chance to make up for that.
Yeah.
That wasn't handled well enough for me. I would have liked better for him. Matamua has at least had a chance to go down and play in the lower grades and work on his game. Today he gets no chance. He's got one game next week and that's it.
Yeah, I think there's also probably a little bit of self-preservation from Brett Kimmorley from what I'm seeing, because obviously, he doesn't want to just blood all these young players and it goes really badly and, his coaching credentials are kind of put on display in a negative way, which is weird because, they already kind of are because we haven't been playing that well. But I would probably challenge the club on the fact that, yes, they've debuted 7 players, but, you've got Freebarn, who's probably not going to have a long-term future with the club. You've got Austin Diaz, who's, also, with all due respect, probably not in the long-term plans in terms of the prop rotation. Like Pauga as well, he's gotten game time. He's not going to be there as well. James Roberts has been in and out before Junior Tupou as well. So I would actually argue that the club hasn't really went down that youth side this season as much as we thought they would. I'm not too sure why. I'm not part of the coaching staff, but it has been a little bit frustrating to put guys who probably don't have a future with the club ahead of people who could potentially be learning for next season. Even if it does go ugly, at least they have that experience under their belt.
It went ugly anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I really think I think the strategy that they've gone for is just not having them all out there at once, and I can kind of understand that side of it. I think Tupou would have played this week if it wasn't for him getting injured at training through the week. So Junior Porga coming in, we're very short in the outside backs considering we let a couple go to other clubs and play semi-finals football at other clubs. So you end up scraping the bottom of the barrel and getting Junior Porga up into first grade. So I don't. It's really only the one today that I have a little bit of an issue with. I don't want to see us put 7 debutants or 7 rookies in their first year out on the field all together at once. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And yes, we've had some bad losses towards the end of the year, but I also don't want those young guys getting out on the field and getting whipped 72-6 without any senior players around them.
Just a couple of other quick stats, and then we'll have a look at the comments and questions. The Dragons had 59% possession, so if you only got 41% of the ball, you're struggling against a team that on paper is probably a little bit better than what we put out there today, and their completion rate was 85%. So they probably did deserve to win the game in the end. Mike says, my word for this evening is gutted. How many ways can this team find to lose? Some great moments and efforts during the game, but so many mistakes as well. Some of those mistakes were under 10s grade stuff-ups. Gutted. And that's a pretty good little summary.
Yeah, that sums up the game pretty well, I think.
Exactly. Super Trev, who's new to the forum, welcome to the West Tigers podcast forum, Super Trev. It's tough to find just one word for the effort that was shown, let alone today, but for the whole season. Somebody give me a word that means disappointed, disgusted, pathetic, heartless, dumb, and upset. Why and how? Congrats on the wooden spoon, fellow Tigers. I never, ever thought we'd get that bad. Just confirming we are definitely going to win the wooden spoon. Gary?
That sounded like one of Steve's one words to me, so I think all of those are fine.
Exactly. Frullins, my one word, 24. 2 reasons. We aren't making the finals until at least 2024. Next year will need to be another building year, which I can handle as long as we build to something and not change direction like we have over the last 10 years. But we need to be patient for at least another year, I think. And he says, number 2, if we make the grand final in the next 5 years, it's with 24 different players to the 30 we have this year. The 6 that I would think make it are Hastings, Dewey, Utukamanu, Twal, Joffa and Blore. Just intertwine in there. Has there been any confirmation of what is going on with Joe Offahengawi? Gary, have you heard anything? There's talk that he might not even be with us next year.
Yeah, well, when I spoke to him, there was no agreement between he and the club on the mutual option that was in his contract. So at that point, he was uncontracted. The rumours I've heard, and they're only rumours, it's not from the club, it's not from Joffa, is that the club and Joffa's management aren't on the same page with value for next season. And so at this point, yeah, he remains unsigned for next year.
He's been our best player this year, and this is something that's going on and on every year with the West Tigers. It didn't happen necessarily last year, but we lost Ryan Madison. He was our best player. We lost James Tedesco. He was our best player that year. Like, you can't keep losing.
Josh Alloway, you could argue the year that he left us was up there in our top couple of players at least. And we're at the point where our best player for this season is still unsigned with 1 game to go.
Salty, my word is blunderstruck. Oh, I like that word. That is that's a good word. Effort was there, but once again the side kept shooting themselves in the foot with basic errors. Chook, Steve has said it over and over again, attention to detail. So everybody's channeling the old fella, Steve. Eastie Magpie, wasteful. That's another good word too. Wasteful of opportunities, wasteful of the effort of teammates, wasteful of possession.
Yeah, it's spot on. The amount of times that we just gave any advantage that we had, and it's been a theme of our club for years. We struggle to hold momentum when we have it, and we struggle to regain it when the other side has it, and that came into play again today, I think.
Skipper 13, I like this post. He says, here's a left field take. Let's change our recruitment policy so that we only chase people that have a good academic record. Most NRL players have incredible physical gifts or dedication to the gym, which gets them to first grade, but you only have to watch a game like today to see it means diddly squat when they need to perform under fatigue. Players like Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk weren't the strongest or fastest, but how many games did they win or save based on their brain? That is why Hastings must be in our team next year. He's the only one we have who is articulate, reasoned, and can think on his feet. Recruit a couple more like him and drop the guys who are dumb as... Well, you know the rest of that little saying is what they're dumb as, but that last 10 minutes. Have you ever seen or 5 minutes? Have you ever seen a 5 minutes that encapsulates us better than that? I mean, wasn't it just West Tigers all over? It's pretty sad.
Yep, can't argue.
There's plenty more. Tiger Symmetry, prioritise Jackson Hastings, just get it done, West Tigers. Now that leads me in. Gary, you had an interview with Jackson Hastings today. The ambush event, final one for the year. Looked like really good numbers there for the ambush at CommBank. Did you get anything from Jackson Hastings that was of interest?
The whole interview was of interest. He spoke to us for about 40 minutes. Really open, really engaging. The big takeaway I have is that he wants to stay at the club. I think he wants to be here moving forward. I think the wording he used is he doesn't want to go somewhere and start again. But he's unsure of where that stands at the moment, which is similar to what we heard from Joffa as well, is that there's been a little bit of talk between the club and his management, but that is still undecided. So he hasn't spoken to the club personally yet, but I believe I've heard a rumor that there's an interview between him and the club this week trying to get it sorted out. But my understanding of what we got from today is that he would like to stay. It's just a matter of getting the club and his management and him all on the same page. So hopefully they can do that, because I think he's crucial moving forward. Not only for the style of football we are looking to play, I think he's crucial if we're going to play that really ball-playing lock. I don't think we can put anyone else into that role at the club at the moment. But just his belief and his commitment to... He's a guy that drives standards, and sometimes he doesn't put those standards across to people in ways that they like. But we need more people at our club who drive standards, and we can't afford to lose one who really drives it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well said. I think he has to be priority numero uno. You can see what's happened to us since he's been off the field.
And we did record that interview today as well. We've recorded. There's a few audio issues. It's quite difficult to record it at CommBank Stadium, but we've recorded it. Joel can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll probably release that through the week, sometime through the pod, probably Tuesday or Wednesday this week. We'll get that out and make sure you have a listen to it if you're interested in him. It's really interesting. He talks about his life growing up and his time in England and his time at the West Tigers. It was a really interesting. He's very giving of his time today. It was standing room only in that members bar at CommBank, and not only did he speak to us for around 40 minutes, he then stayed around and had photos taken with just about every person in the bar. So really classy individual and really worth a listen. So make sure you grab that pod and have a bit of a listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, that'll be podcast number 211. So we'll probably get that going on Tuesday or Wednesday, as you say, Gary. Brooks Coyne says he agrees in regards to that X factor forward. He says until we get one of those, we're going to be a bottom 4 team. I was going to throw a quick question or observation. Well, I guess it is a question. Declan, and Gary and I spoke about this the other day when we talked about Cam Munster. Given that Hastings is not signed, that there doesn't seem to be any rush to sign Brooks and Dewey as well, are you of the opinion that maybe something else is going on behind the scenes and we're waiting to see how other cards fall before signing our own?
Yeah, there's definitely something behind the scenes going on. Whether it's good or bad, I'm not sure. And it's probably bad from recent history and the fact that I think that there's a few people that probably want a few more zeros in their contracts than the club is happy to give, which is why things are taking a little bit longer. But it could also be good in the fact that maybe they do want to go after someone like Cameron Munster or Dylan Brown, who's another one, or Mitchell Moses even. There are options in the open market that maybe Tim Sheens wants to hold before he commits to anyone. So that could be it. But, it's probably... I'm in a negative mood right now, so I'm probably going to say that it's the first option that I spoke about.
You're hard to please, Declan. Why are you in a negative mood?
Yeah, well, it's weird. I know. I'm just so unreasonable.
We've won something this year, Declan. We've finally won something.
Yeah.
You want a big wooden spoon.
Well, this is only the second wooden spoon in my life. Hopefully there are no more. Brooks Coyne, amateur is my word. Which is probably pretty accurate. He also says we're an absolute frying pan for rookies. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think that's been one failing of the second part of this year. And I'm taking on board what you're saying, Gary, but I think we could have done it in hindsight a heck of a lot better. And Tiger 5150 agree that New Brown needs to be kept much better version of Peachy. He says my word for today was immaturity. So many opportunities to close their game out. And we were lining it up to screw it up. And I've got to say, when I walked away from the game, I had to leave it, as I say, with 10 to go. I kind of thought, we're not going to win this. I just can't see us winning it. It's pretty sad. When you're leading with 10 to go, you should be able to put a game away, Gary.
Look, I really think my daughter summed it up best today on the drive home from the game. She's 9 years old, so all she's known is West Tigers, what it was. She goes, today was good. We didn't get flogged. No, I don't think. I think, and if you look at it from a 9-year-old's point of view, that's all she's ever really known. So she was quite happy with today.
You never know. We might be sitting here in 12 months and things are a lot more rosy. You just don't know. It's Anyway,
I doubt it.
It's been a bludger of a season. Massive numbers tonight listening in. Thanks everybody, and Gary and Declan, thank you very much. Midweek pod, the last official sort of midweek pod, because we've got the Raiders next weekend at Leichhardt. But we're nearly there. It's crawling towards the end. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys.